In my previous review, we talked about the glorious dragging of finance bros in The Devil Wears Prada 2, and that was really fun to do. Thus, why not have a go at another division of finance bros, those being the crypto bros.
Cryptocurrency. It's pretty stupid.
Hi, I'm Lady Genevieve, and on my channel I talk about entertainment media. Today we're going to be doing a quick review of the new documentary, Everyone is Lying to You for Money, but we are also going to be talking about the source material book, which is called Easy Money, Cryptocurrency, Casino Capitalism, and the Golden Age of Fraud by Ben McKenzie, along with his co-author and collaborator, Jacob Silverman. If you didn't already know this, Ben McKenzie is an actor who is best known for his work on various television series, but during the lockdown, the industry was largely shut down, leaving many a SAG member to sit at home and wait to see when and how the sets would get back up and running again. For Ben, he found himself approached by a friend who had previously given him terrible financial advice, bad enough for Ben to have lost a significant amount of what he had invested. This time, Ben's friend was recommending to him that he invest in crypto. Ben has an undergraduate degree in economics, so combine that with a whole lot of unexpected free time and a stubborn determination to look into what the heck is going on in here on this day, and Ben ended up setting off on a path of befriending this journalist, Jacob Silverman. The two of them embarked on a journey of investigating and reporting on crypto. Somewhere in the midst of that, they secured a book deal for easy money. Ben gave numerous interviews to various news outlets, he testified before Congress. He also hired a film crew to follow him throughout this journey, leading to this new documentary, Everyone is Lying to You for Money. I attended a screening for this documentary, after which Ben was present and did a moderated conversation and an audience Q&A about the documentary as well as its subject matter. I would assume that if you are someone who watches reviews on YouTube, you will probably have experienced some amount of the dramatic news cycle about the rise and fall of cryptocurrency, with things like online influencers launching their own crypto and doing a rug pull, thus scamming their followers out of loads of money. You have the much larger version of that same scheme with various figureheads and CEOs of crypto companies. Some even got arrested, put on trial, even convicted in the case of someone like Sam Bankman-Fried, whom Ben interviewed a couple of months before he was arrested. He talks about the interview in the book, and you see some of that interview in the documentary. I'm going to first offer an overview of how to best get introduced to the information Ben has introduced through this crypto investigation. If you want to get an introduction to some of the major talking points Ben reiterates time and time again, you can watch many an interview he has done that are available to stream on YouTube with various major outlets. They're usually a couple of minutes long, though some are more in-depth episodes. And he makes a point of trying to demystify what crypto is, debunking the fallacious rhetoric, propaganda if you will, that influencers and higher-ups in that space try to use to fool people into throwing their money away by investing in crypto. The book is the best option to get a more detailed account of how Ben got into investigating crypto, what he did, what he learned, and he also explains certain concepts in varying amounts of detail. In one of the earliest chapters of this book, when he's giving more of the historical information you need to know about finance, crypto, many technical explanation. Some of it was information that I found a bit more difficult to follow because I haven't read as much literature in the fields of things like computer science and economics. Some of the vernacular was unfamiliar or less familiar. However, not long after he was explaining this, he wrote that it was completely fine if you were finding the information to be difficult to follow, and then for the rest of the book, the vast majority of what gets reported on is presented in a way that doesn't require an extremely high level of formal education in a specialized subject or field. The book is written with the goal of informing people about what cryptocurrency is and why it's a scam. They also report on specific higher-ups in the industry, some of whom have a list of other crimes and scams that they've been involved in. Comparing the book to the documentary, unsurprisingly, the book is the more informationally dense option. Quite a bit of what you see in the documentary is explained in more detail in the book. That being said, there are some moments or details that are shown in the documentary which are not in the book. One example of this is when Ben was in London. He was on the tube and a random man recognized Ben as being an actor. He asked him what he was doing now, and Ben tells this man that he's doing a documentary on cryptocurrency, which is why there's a camera there filming him. And this man shares how he had invested a small amount in crypto because of an Instagram advert, and that he never made any money off of this investment, but he did get hassled more than once by crypto folks that kept reaching out to try to nag him into investing even more money. That sort of earnest human connection, it's always going to help with the pathos and the storytelling of a film. It's effective in how it enrobes educational material in humor. There's stylish editing, animation, and graphics to be more visually arresting, but not at the expense of reporting important findings on the giant Ponzi scheme of cryptocurrency. Unfortunately, there is a literary crisis nowadays. Too many people either cannot read, they do not read, their ability to read is far below their age. That's one of the reasons why I have grown increasingly determined to promote libraries here on my channel. This is a library book, which I got to borrow for free, because while everyone else is lying to you for money, begging or demanding or manipulating you into stealing what little money you have, libraries are not asking you for any money. You get a library card, and that is what helps their funding. You're going to the library and borrowing books. Those numbers of books being borrowed also helps their funding. I brought this book with me to the screening because I wanted to show that I read the book, give the book some extra promotion while I was there. And Ben McKenzie himself could tell that I had borrowed this from a library.
What was it like taking that assignment in as part of making this film to ensure that people were operating on the same level as you, someone who's read all these books,
Right.
co-written a book, etc.
Right.
To make sure that they were up to speed in a way
Yeah.
that was helpful but didn't take too much of your runtime.
Yeah, I mean, you have to make the story fit the medium. And in a book, you can, thank you. Look at that. Did that come from the library?
Yes.
Yay! I love that. Fantastic. Look at that. In a book, 300 pages, you can write about the history of private money and what money is and all of this sort of fun academic econ dork stuff. In a movie, I don't want people to be bored. I want them to have a good time at the cinema. That's the way I'm going to reach the most people.
One of the earliest things in the documentary is Ben introducing himself as an actor that many people recognize first and foremost for his role in the OC. It's sort of a recurring joke that no matter how many other acting jobs Ben books or how much work he does now as an investigative journalist in the cryptocurrency industry, people will still introduce and regard him first and foremost as that actor from the OC. However, what I found to be particularly clever is that this in many ways acts as a springboard for the documentary's approach in its storytelling. Because many people in the audience have some sort of a nostalgic or parasocial interest in him, because he was on one or more television series that they have watched and enjoyed, that is going to be a built-in point of interest for viewers to tune in and watch this documentary. They might not wake up and decide on their own that they would like to know more information about the criminals running the Ponzi scheme of cryptocurrency. The documentary adds a more personal touch to its storytelling by including footage of Ben being at home with his wife and children. Oftentimes, when a documentary is put together, the information itself will take center stage, but since many an online scroller might have stumbled across this story specifically because Ben McKenzie from the OC or Ben McKenzie from Gotham is sounding the alarm about crypto on this news show or getting into a social media tussle with this or that high-profile terminally online person who peddles crypto for a living, it makes perfect sense to put Ben in more of the spotlight in the documentary. Have Ben look directly into the camera like he's in an episode of The Office when he's sitting next to Alex Mashinsky, and this man is spewing nonsense to try to promote crypto. There's a wonderful sense of humor in the documentary, particularly when he's doing improv with his wife Morena, who is also an actor, presumably you already know that, or even a cameo appearance from Gerard Butler that I don't care about spoiling in this review because they gave it away in the trailer. Beyond the humor, though, there's something really tragic about watching the documentary, particularly when you are seeing people in El Salvador who are set to be displaced from their homes because weirdo finance bros want to build Bitcoin City. Imagine that, displacing indigenous people from their land, destroying indigenous nature, trees, all for rich weirdos to make even more money. Why does that sound so familiar? They talked about this issue in the book, Ben visiting El Salvador to see whether or not cryptocurrency was being used by the people at large. But actually seeing the land and the people who are being displaced on screen hits a different emotional sore spot, which is saying something considering how it was already the most emotionally compelling part of my experience in reading this book. The documentary also shows some of the interviews Ben did with various men who lost massive amount of money from investing in Celsius. That was one of the other big cryptocurrencies, I think. They all sound like gibberish to me, but anyway. If there's one thing I would want to read more about that's a tangent of sorts related to this topic, is the fact that it is disproportionately men who seem to be most prone to falling for this crypto nonsense, and it has a similar overlap to being prone to gambling. I would be interested in reading any literature that unpacks research findings on why it is that men do a lot more of this. In that regard, looking in on this documentary and seeing Ben attending these crypto conferences, it felt like watching some sort of anthropological study or something National Geographic about men, and more specifically looking at finance bros or crypto bros like they're a foreign species. I never understood how or why crypto was drawing people in the way that it was. And to be honest, crypto probably only started to enter my sphere of awareness when celebrities were doing horrible advertisements for it, when influencers were getting in trouble for scamming their followers with rug pull schemes. And of course, eventually, things escalated to the point of legal proceedings kicking off, SBF being arrested and whatnot. Perhaps it's just a difference in what my algorithm favors showing me, but anyway. The algorithm stalking me never picked up a whiff of interest from me that would necessitate trying to push more of that material towards me, until it became drama, crimes, exposed, that sort of thing, because that's when things break containment. Drama always permeates beyond its primary ecosystem. If you feel as though reading a nonfiction book like Easy Money seems too intimidating, maybe you could start with a documentary.
How much have you donated to politicians? Investors, do you have anything to say?
If you're not intimidated by reading something nonfiction, then of course I would tell you, go get this book from your local library. The documentary should work for more or less everyone. Ben's background as an actor suits him well so that he's able to add more of that performative element into the storytelling and humor than you would usually get in a documentary about financial crimes. When Ben was preparing to meet and greet the people who attended the screening that I was at, he asked that we all go and tell someone about the film. That's all he was asking from us. And now that I've done that to you, the viewer, you are someone, I would encourage you to do the same. Share the knowledge of the book, the documentary, for anyone in your life that you are concerned might be susceptible to crypto propaganda. Point them in the direction of Ben's reporting through this multimedia approach he's used. Spread the knowledge because knowledge is power. Even with certain informational overlap, I think it's worth it to both read and watch the book and the documentary, because if rich people are up to no good, I want more of the details. I want the full perspective of what's really going on. And in the case of something like the interactions that Ben had with Sam Bankman-Fried, there are details you will miss out on if you do not experience both mediums. In the book, Ben talks more about their Twitter DMing, and every time Sam would start off a Twitter DM by saying that he was off the record, Ben would say to the reader that off the record isn't applicable unless both parties agree to it, and Ben never agreed to it. And then Ben immediately starts telling the reader what Sam said to him in the DMs. Ben talks about the interview in the book and describes Sam's peculiar behavior and his evasive maneuvering when he's being asked serious questions, but actually seeing the interview footage in the documentary, it's a whole other experience. Just to see how awkward this man is, the way he's squirming at being asked real investigative questions instead of being softballed and kissed up to by corporate US media outlets. However, if you only watch the documentary and you do not read the book, you're not going to get the information about Ben saying that during the interview, there was a point where there was a strange sound that emerged, and Ben and the various technical people in the room, people who were running and monitoring the sound for the recording of the interview, they started looking around trying to figure out what that was. Do you know what the sound was? Sam had pulled out a fidget spinner and was using it during the interview. Ben had that scammer stressed, and I love to read it. After the screening, when Ben was doing the Q&A, I asked a question about certain parallels I had first picked up on when reading the book between certain tactics and harm in the crypto industry that were similar to things I had read in Empire of AI, which is Karen Howe's book, which is an exposé of Sam Altman and OpenAI. I asked Ben if he's noticed any similarities between these two industries, And I'm going to close off this video by showing you his answer.
There's a thing called the grift shift, which is grifters shifting from different things, crypto to AI. I think Bitcoin and crypto is really the story of the selling of a story, the selling of a technology that really is much more about a story, because the tech is old. Like blockchain goes back to 1991, so it's 35 years old. You'll notice that like it's very hard to find a company outside of the crypto industry that uses blockchain, and that's because it sucks. It doesn't work that well. And with AI, unfortunately, the technology is real, right? And it is having ramifications already, right now. Doesn't mean we have to like it, but doesn't mean we have to deal with it. And I do notice some troubling similarities. Because something could be hyped and real, but also could be overhyped, right? And I think one obvious thing that we have to be doing, I'm sure probably you're all doing this already, but just to state the obvious, the people that are in control of the technology cannot be trusted to be objective about it, obviously, because they have so much to gain financially, like immeasurable wealth in many cases, in several cases, at least in one case with Sam. And I was really troubled by that New Yorker article, Profile of Sam Altman, which I don't know if anyone's read, but has many, many, many sources, and sort of the repetitive theme is that a lot of people that he's worked with think that he's a pathological liar. That's their words, not mine. And then one Microsoft executive unnamed executive is quoted as saying something like, I think there's a decent chance that Sam Altman is the next Bernie Madoff or Sam Bankman-Fried. And that was when I had to put the article down for a second and revisit it later. Yeah, there's some troubling similarities.